Hildegard of Bingen was a 12th century German theologian, mystic, writer, polymath, and de facto abbess. She is one of only 4 women honored in Roman Catholicism as a doctor of the Church. Hildegard was the 10th and last child of a noble family from what is now the modern-day Rhineland in western Germany. Born in 1098, Hildegard enjoyed the privileges of wealth and easy access to those in power. At the time of her birth, monasticism remained an option for elites, and asceticism was admired. Hildegard's parents sent her to live in a monastic community when she was 8 years old. This may seem young, but some children joined religious communities at an even younger age. Hildegard was taken to live with a young noblewoman, Vita of Sponheim, who was living at the monastery of St. Disibod as an ascetic anchoress. Their cell would have had at least one window through which they received food and counseled visitors. Jutta provided Hildegard with a Latin education, which was unusual for a medieval woman, so that she could learn and chant the Psalms. By the time Hildegard was ready to take the veil as a teenager, the anchorage had become a small convent under the Benedictine rule attached to Disibodenberg. Hildegard became Mother Superior of this convent when Jutta died in 1136. At the time, it was common for parents, particularly with large families, to send one child to a monastic community. Medieval parents
had many possible motives for doing so: assurance of a place in heaven for themselves or their children, a desire for the education of their offspring, care for children whom they themselves could not support, donation to the most important cultural and political entity in society.
Hildegard's parents also recognized her unusual spiritual sensitivity and love for God. Hildegard received several visions, which she referred to as illuminations or reflections of living light as a young child. In the 3rd year of my life, I saw so bright a light that my very soul trembled, but because I was still an infant, I was unable to say anything. Then in my 8th year, I was dedicated to the spiritual life as an offering to God, and until my 15th, I saw many things, and I spoke of such things in a very simple way, so that those who heard me wondered where all this had come from, and from whom. And I too wondered at myself, because although I saw these things deep in my soul, I still retained outer vision, and I have never heard that said of any other human being. And so I hid that vision I saw within my soul as best I could. Hildegard refrained from discussing her visions even after she had become the leader of her community in 1136. It wasn't until decades later, when motivated by illness and the encouragement of Volmar and Richardus, that Hildegard embraced her visions. Though I saw and heard those things, I refused to write for a long time through doubt and bad opinion and the diversity of human words, not with stubbornness but in the exercise of humility, until laid low by the scourge of God, I fell upon a bed of sickness. Then, compelled at last by many illnesses, and by the witness of a certain noble maiden of good conduct, and of that man whom I had secretly sought out and found, I set my hand to writing. Hildegard's first and most well-known work is Scivias, a 3-volume theological work documenting her visions. The title is a contraction of the Latin phrase Scivias Domini, meaning know the ways of the Lord. Hildegard wrote Scivias to provide a prophetic message for her time, and often used feminine imagery to describe aspects of God and creation. Between 1147 and 48, at a synod in Trier, the first sections of Scivias were reviewed, culminating in Pope Eugene III declaring them prophetic and divine in nature, as well as granting Hildegard the authority to preach. This incident is significant because it highlights the issue of female religious authority. Like other monastic women, Hildegard navigated difficulties surrounding female religious authority by making deprecatory statements, obtaining support from male religious leaders like Bernard of Clairvaux, and claiming that her visions came directly from God. Pope Eugene's public approval radically altered Hildegard's life. From then on,
pilgrims came to Disibodenberg to consult her, novices with their donations were attracted to her convent, people from all walks of life wrote to her for advice or for consolation, and she undertook 4 preaching tours in the surrounding area of Germany.
In approximately 1148, Hildegard received another vision instructing her to take her nuns and found a new convent at Rupertsberg near Bingen, where there was already a small church. The abbot of Disibodenberg, Kuno, did not want her to leave because Hildegard's fame had attracted novices with significant dowries, which increased the wealth of the monastery. When monastic communities accepted young newcomers, they were in essence promising to provide them with food, shelter, clothing, and education. All of this cost money, and newcomers
came to the monasteries with significant money, or the equivalent in goods and land. Daughters especially would come to the communities with endowments or dowries, as though they were brides coming to a wedding. The endowment became the property of the monastery.
Since the number of novices helped determine a monastery's wealth, it is small wonder that Abbot Kuno did not want Hildegard and her nuns to leave. However, Hildegard prevailed and obeyed her vision. She left Disse-Bodenberg, where she had lived for slightly over 40 years, and established the new Benedictine monastery at Rupertsberg. This gave her more independence because her and her nuns were no longer part of a double house under direct male supervision. Hildegard finished recording her visions at Rupertsberg and died there on September 17, 1179. Despite frequent illnesses throughout her life, Hildegard produced various works of music, medicine, science, poetry, philosophy, theology, and other subjects. These are remarkable accomplishments for a 12th century woman. Although other women had written before her, Hildegard seems not to have been aware of them, and it must have taken great courage for her to write. She was the first in a long line of visionary, politically active women. Beginning at the age of 60, Hildegard led preaching tours and called for church reform. She was considered the Sibyl of the Rhine, and many went to her for advice. Hildegard was a humble person despite the fact that she ran in elite circles and corresponded with world leaders. This episode was written by Erika Bohler and narrated by Emily von Hausen.